I don't like to bring people into doing anything that I've never done myself. I don't ever want to bite off more than I can chew. But one of the biggest misconceptions that I think in 2025 that people is saying about real estate is that you can get into it with no money down. There's no such thing as getting to real estate with no money. Little money, yes, but no money, it's not happening. Once you get into this type of market, real estate, and people know that you buy properties, they're gonna come to you. You don't necessarily have to look for them. Trust me, if you're buying, they're selling. Like, there's no need to look, they're there. You just have to build your network. The best business advice that I've learned is actually just working in corporate America. All businesses are in the business of making money. So to take you all back to who I am and where I grew up, what Jess was like as a kid, I actually am from Los Angeles, California, South Central. As a kid, I think my family would definitely all agree that I was just very bossy, always, like a little kid. My cousin / best friend, I just remember I used to just boss her around, and she's actually like 6 months older than me. I had 3 brothers at the time. My sister is the youngest of us, and she was born like much later. So I kind of grew up with all boys, hopping off the roofs, riding bikes. There was like 3 of us on a bicycle, one on the peg, one on the handlebars, and one person riding. So I've got a lot of war wounds just from like being in the streets of South Central. I ran track and cross country when I was younger, so I've always been competitive. I always have been a hard worker. I just remember I would always be like babysitting or like cleaning my mom's friends' houses, watching the dogs, whatever I could do to make some money. That is one thing that I've always been really like driven towards, was figuring out how to be financially independent. I'll be honest, I don't believe that I've actually really had like someone that influenced me. I didn't necessarily really have mentors until I got older, but honestly, what influenced me was having my daughter. Having my daughter at 16, that was the biggest influence that I needed to change my life and make my life better, so that I could, ultimately give her a great life. I am an investor. I invest primarily in real estate. However, I do have stocks. I definitely love investing in index funds and mutual funds. Those are great. They don't require much thought. They have, they're a proven return. So I would definitely say that real estate and stocks is my primary investments. Of course, I buy other things that assets, but primarily real estate and stock. Before I got into real estate, I worked in corporate America. But before corporate America, I actually am a military veteran. I was in the Army for 12 years. From the Army, I transitioned into system engineering, which I actually learned on my first deployment to Southwest Asia. But I worked in corporate America as a systems engineer, worked my way up into management, made my way all the way to the director level. How do I get into system engineering from my military job, which was actually human resource? So I started off in human resource. I did human resource the majority of my military career, actually. But on my deployment, when I deployed with the Signal Unit, which is basically IT, to the Southwest Asia, and they had what they call Arson University there. And something to do with my free time was taking classes for IT industry certifications like CompTIA. I started off with Security Plus, and then I did CAST. I did like ITIL. I did some Microsoft. I think I got my MCSA. For those of you that are in the tech world, you understand what I'm saying. But that is how I actually got into system engineering. And when I came back from my deployment, I went fully reserve, and I applied at just about like every job that I thought that I could possibly get. And I ended up taking a position with the Army Corps of Engineers as a contractor, as the senior windows engineer. A typical day for me now versus 5 years ago looks like, well, 5 years ago, I think I just started working from home. 5 years ago was like the pandemic, right? So my typical then was not typical. Let's just say, let's take it back 6 years now. So a typical day 6 years ago was I would wake up 5 a.m. I was still in Los Angeles at this time, drive 45 minutes into the office. I would work about 10 hours. Oh, after I would drop my daughter off at school, obviously, right? And then drive into work, work about 10 hours, and I would go pick my daughter up. Maybe it was cheer season. She may have had practice. If she had practice, I would be there just kind of studying, listening to audibles, walk around the track, go home, cook, do homework with her, shower, send her to bed. That was like a typical day. And if I was kind of learning something at that time, I would spend my night times kind of in bed reading or watching YouTube videos to just educate myself. A lot of the same, right? Got married, got kids. So, but I work from home now. So a typical day is usually wake up. I don't leave one thing about me is that until I'm ready to start my day, I do not exit my room. So it's just a mental thing. I wake up first thing in the morning, I spend time in the bathroom on the phone, looking over all my emails. It's the first thing I do. I check my emails. I respond to any messages that came in late. And if there's any tasks that I have to do, I kind of organize those. I spend the first hour of my day organizing my day, actually. And then I obviously get ready for work, go into the office, spend time there. After the work day, spend time with the kids, whatever it is they have, practice. Like I said, same thing, cook, eat, clean, go for a walk, decompress. I'll be honest, sometimes decompressing is hard and sometimes decompressing is non-existent for that day. That's just the harsh reality of success, right? There's a lot that you have to manage. And even if you are done for the day, work-wise with tasks, mentally, it's still on your brain. So decompressing is something that sometimes that I do struggle with, but if I just really want to decompress and I mentally can decompress, then I usually just go for a walk or online shopping. I love online shopping. I prefer to do it than go into the stores. So I'm not really a big TV watcher. I don't watch much TV, to be honest, like of any. Usually when I turn it on, it's watching me and I'm either on the phone or falling asleep. That's really what I do to decompress. I don't do much. My decompression is just figuring out how to relax my brain. Hobbies that I have outside of work, outside of real estate, outside of IT, I would say is definitely fashion. I love fashion, a recovering shopaholic. And I definitely love decor. I just love beautiful things. I love making things beautiful. I love cleanliness. I just absolutely love putting things in. I think everything has a place, and I like to create those places and keep them in those places. I love hiking. That's another thing that I absolutely love. I love nature. I think it's just the perfect time to relax and clear your mind. For myself, when I go hiking, I want to hear nature. I don't like listening to music. I don't want to hear anybody talking. If you ever go hiking with me, please do not talk to me. I just want to relax. So definitely that's my other biggest hobby is just hiking. So my first deal actually was what's considered arm's length transaction, although we were related. It was between my grandfather and I. My first deal was in Los Angeles. I bought my grandfather's house, which was this really old house, had not been remodeled since he bought it in like the 70s. I think he bought it like late 70s. What I would say equivalent to, it should have been abandoned, okay? It had holes in the ceiling and the floor. It had like 3 layers of wallpaper. It was just, when I bought that house, everyone was looking at me like, are you crazy? So that was my first deal. It's also, that deal was also one of the most memorable, not just because it's my grandfather's house or my first deal, but because of all the lessons that I learned from within that deal. In that deal, I had to deal with, again, I had an arm's length transaction. My grandfather had a tax lien that I found out later. I found out about I think it's called Caviar's report. Also, we did a gift of equity in that deal. It was a full renovation. Total, I think it was almost $100,000. Another video, I will tell you guys how I got through that, the whole deal, and we'll run the numbers and everything. But I did a cash out refi later. Because it was an arm's length deal, which we didn't, that means we did not use a realtor. We acted independently. We didn't have anyone representing us. I had to create all the purchase documents for myself and my grandfather, because my grandfather was really old at the time. I think he was in his early 80s, and he also was suffering from dementia at the time. So it was just a very interesting deal with how it all played out, with me living in the property while I was remodeling it, because I couldn't afford to keep my place in South Bay, and I was taking care of my grandfather's mortgage at the time. So paying that and trying to do the remodel, I maxed out my savings. I also, at the time, I also had pulled some cash from my 401k to do that renovation as well. So that deal was like, I learned almost like everything that you need to learn in real estate the first time. It was so overwhelming. It was so stressful. I used to cry at night. I was also doing my master's at the same time. And what I had did was I had remodeled one room in the house before I moved in there. I put all my stuff in storage. I had got like this a pop-up closet type things. I wanted to keep everything zipped up because there was like roaches and rats. It was terrible in the place. So but that room that I had remodeled, I had a king size air mattress. Me, my daughter, and my brother were sleeping in that room on that air mattress for 3 months together. It was so stressful, but I learned so much, and it's definitely a deal that I think that a lot of people can learn from once I walk them through that. So if you guys are interested in hearing about that deal, make sure you like, comment, and follow me, and make sure you keep up with me to learn about that crazy deal that I think is just, it was amazing. I'm grateful for it now. And at the time, oh my gosh, I was just like, I just threw away my life savings. The time that I almost quit was that first deal with my grandfather. Because he had dementia, I put $75,000 of my savings, my cash, into this house. One day he wakes up and he's like, "What is everyone doing here in my house? And what happened to my house?" And he was like ready to fight me, and he literally said, "I'm not selling this house anymore." And I was like, I just put all my money in here because, mind you, because the house was so crappy, I had to rehab it before I could purchase it, which I don't recommend anyone ever doing this, okay? I learned, obviously, through this process, and luckily for me, it was my grandfather's. But I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I was going to just walk away from it all. I was like, I had $0 before, okay? And I will make it back. But luckily, we were able to get through it. Again, dementia, every day could be something new. I had a vision. I think what kept me going outside of it being my grandfather's property and obviously wanting to get my money back, I had a vision. Before I even agreed to do the deal with my grandfather, because I knew that I didn't want to, the house is in South Central. I'm from South Central. I wasn't going to go back and live there, make that my forever home, of course, right? Having a vision and just knowing where I want to be, because I used to, before I bought that house, the first real estate book I had got was Brandon Turner. I think it was like Rental Properties. I forget the name of it. I've read it so long ago, but the one with white and blue, I think most people know what that book is if you follow real estate, and most people know Brandon Turner as well. Bigger Pockets was a big thing at that time. So I used to listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I read that book because someone had gave it to me as a gift, actually. I get a lot of books gifted to me. So I got that book as a gift, and I read it, and I used to follow the Bigger Pockets podcast. So just listening to them, that kind of kept me going. I'm the type of person that, like most people, they see someone else doing something, they're like, oh, that's great, they're doing that. I don't know how they do that. I could never do that. I'm the type of person to say, oh my God, they're great. That's great that they're doing that. I want to do that. I can do it because if they can do it, why can't I do it? It's not impossible. A big mistake that I made early on that I'm grateful for that kept me going in real estate? That's a hard question to answer because I look at life like everything's a lesson. So for me, mistakes are it's a lesson learned. I don't see it as like, oh, I don't really regret much of anything. I can't think of anything that I regret. Do I probably regret some things? Maybe, but I also don't like cry over spilled milk or like dwell in the past. So I don't have the capacity in my brain to think about what I wish I coulda, woulda, did, It's just, that's not me. When I first started investing, my friends and family were excited. I got a lot of support. I have like that first property that I did, my grandpa, my brother, my aunt, my friends and stuff would come over, help me paint. Like we were doing a lot of stuff. I got a lot of support, and I don't think anyone was surprised when I got into investing in real estate because most people that really know me, they know that my mom's friends, now when I see them, when I go to visit her, they're like, oh, I just knew you were going to make some money and be something great because you were a hustler as a little kid. Like you were always like, hey, how are you? Okay, do you have anything for me to do to make some money? So no one was surprised. Now I focus on multifamily. I also do single family investing as well, but I'm focused on multifamily right now because my aspirations are like, you see those huge complex and it's like, well, I don't know, 1,000 units or something, right?
500,000.
Yeah, 500 to 1,000. That's what I want overall. That's my final goal. I don't like to do anything because that's something that, syndication you do with the group. I don't like to bring people into doing anything that I've never done myself. I started off with the small multifamilies, which is what they consider small, maybe big to some people, but usually that's like the 8 to 24 units is kind of small multifamily. And that's what I'm focusing on right now, to learn the ins and outs of how you deal with multifamily properties. One of the things that I am very big on is just like learning comfortably. I don't ever want to be learning and it's just like, if this doesn't happen and then I have to skip that mortgage payment and then who knows what's going to happen. So I think it's a good way to elevate up. I got into the small multifamilies because one of the books that I've read, and I don't want to quote it because I don't know which real estate book it came from, because I'll be honest, a lot of times I don't necessarily focus too much on who's providing the information as well as much as the information. And I've read a great amount of books, but I know that they talk about going from, okay, you should maybe start at 1 and then your next one try to do like 2 and then just 4. So you're just doubling every time. And that's kind of the approach that I've taken with real estate, was just double. Okay, if I got, like when I did single families, okay, I'll do 1 this year. Okay, next year I'll do 2, right? The next year I'll do 4. And then even when I got into multifamily, okay, well, I'll do a duplex. Okay, now I'll do a 4-plex. All right, now let's go ahead and jump into an 8 unit, 16. So what I call it is like just taking steps. I did my degrees the same way. I did my associate first. I actually got 2 associates at once. And then I did 2 more years and got the bachelor. And then I took a break for 2 years and then 2 more years and then got the master's. So I don't ever want to bite off more than I can chew. Some people may not like that I'm finna say this, but one of the biggest misconceptions that I think in 2025 that people is saying about real estate is that you can get into it with no money down. That's yes, you can get a hard money loan. I don't recommend that for a first-time investor, unless you know the person or you could work out just a sweet deal that it would work for you, or if you are actually a contractor or handy person that you can actually renovate this property and get it out in time. But I think you see all these people on social media that get into real estate, make a 100 grand with no money down. As a wholesaler, maybe, but even then, you got to buy software to get those leads. So there's no such thing as getting to real estate with no money. Little money, yes, but no money, it's not happening. Right now, I currently invest in 3 different states. I'm out of California now. Taxes are too high. But I am in Florida, Missouri, and Mississippi. Even though I'm investing out of state, the states that I am in, I have roots there. So Florida, obviously, this is my current home where I reside in Florida. Mississippi, my mother is actually from Mississippi. She's from Jackson, Mississippi area. So I've got a lot of family there, a lot of ties that made it quite easy for me to get into the Jackson market. And in St. Louis, which is where my husband is from, obviously his family's there. So lots of ties there that allowed us to get into the Missouri market. How do I find deals now? I don't necessarily find deals. Deals find me now. I've been doing this long enough where part of that morning, when I say I open up my email, I have deals waiting in my inbox every morning when I wake up. I get deals throughout the day, deals in the middle of the night. They're coming to me. Once you get into this type of market, real estate, and people know that you buy properties, they're going to come to you. You don't necessarily have to look for them. Some of them I find I love the Zillow app, so I still will look at stuff, right? So some of them I do find on the market. A lot of them are off market. A lot of wholesalers come to me. A lot of, I like to call them flippers. I don't know what they call themselves, but turnkey properties come to me as well. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily buy turnkey properties because I like to add value, but there are some that came across it. I'm like, this is actually great and it's going to cash flow, so I'll take it. But I do kind of focus more on those distressed properties. I go to the auction, I find properties there. But again, I think, I'll be honest, I'm not looking as much as I was in like my first year or two of getting into real estate investing, because once you build that network, people are going to come to you. Trust me, if you're buying, they're selling. Like there's no need to look, they're there. You just have to build your network. I would say the next 3 years, I'm hoping that we see a drop in interest rates. If we see a drop in interest rates, I think that's going to allow, because the market everyone knows that there was that big boom during the pandemic where everyone was overbuying and house values were at an all-time high. But that was a moment. We're starting to see that they're starting to balance out. Obviously, they're still higher than what they were then, because that's the nice thing about real estate is that it appreciates. But I do foresee the interest rates going down and we get more buyers on the market, because right now I think we're not getting the amount of buyers that we would like to see when you're doing flips. This is why I'm not necessarily flipping right now. Right now, I am focusing on cash flow. I am buying rentals. I do think that maybe even within that next 3 to 5 years, you may start to see more renters, because I don't know what's going to happen with the housing market. Honestly, I don't think it's something that you can predict. If I were to sit here and say, oh, I think this is going to happen, I would just be talking out of the side of my mouth. And I don't like to do that at all. I'm more of I'm not really like the small talk person. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But in 10 years, I'm hoping my properties have doubled in value. That's what I see happening, is just real estate continuing to appreciate as it has been. I've learned some great business advice, and I've learned some great leadership advice, which is I know how you could use them interchangeably, but 2 different things. So the the best business advice that I've learned is actually just working in a corporate America. All businesses are in the business of making money. Yes, you have your product, you have your service, which is what is customer facing, back end. What do we care about? The numbers. And I think that, a lot of people that are getting started and entrepreneurs, obviously you need your product and your service need to be great and you need to have great customer service. But where a lot of people fail is that they don't know finance and they don't focus on the finance. They don't understand budgeting. They don't understand saving. And that's where their business fails because they don't know how to actually run a business. Just remember, all businesses are in the business of making money. And I think if you can put that first, then I think you'll do great in business. But just, there's a caveat to that. Not all money is good money. Okay, so have some values and some morals because I think that'll take you a lot further than money will ever take you. For the second part of that, the biggest leadership advice that I have learned, and I think it's I don't know if it's that I've learned, but I think it's more of a model that I follow as a leader, is that your value as a leader is determined by the talent that you develop, right? So I'm not a good leader if I can't develop other leaders. I don't want to have a whole bunch of just little working bees. I need to be developing queen bees. I would tell the person that's looking to get started in real estate investing, just do it. I don't think there's ever a right or wrong time. There's always good deals out there. Trust me, there's always good deals. So I do not lose sleep over a deal if I don't get it, if someone get it before me, because I know that more will come. So for those that are looking to get started in real estate investing, I would definitely say start off with get your knowledge, gain some knowledge. One of the things that I learned from the book that I read by Brandon Turner, the book of rental property investing, is that it takes 3 things to do a successful real estate deal, or what 3 things that you need to be a successful real estate investor or make a successful deal. Can't remember exactly how he worded that, but I just remember that you need knowledge, hustle, and money. And you don't need all 3. You need 2, and you can find another person with the third. So if you got the money and you got the knowledge, you can find somebody with the hustle, right? That hustle, I think, is more of that like manpower, pulling everything together and working that deal out. But you need one of those 3. And it's funny because, like I said, that was the first book that I had read. And that's what stuck with me the longest. And just knowing, luckily for myself, I have all 3. But obviously you have to knowledge. You only know what you know until you go learn more, right? So I got the knowledge. I attended some conference and mastermind groups, seminars, read books. Obviously, talking to when I find people that are doing what I want to do, I'm all ears. I'm like, hey, can I take you to lunch? I want to take you to lunch and just kind of ask you some questions, or I just want to hang out with you. Can I just kind of shadow you for a day? So I did things like that to get the knowledge. Hustle, I was a born hustler, okay? Again, like I said, if there's one thing that I'm going to do, it's get some money. So that was just in the blood. And the money, obviously, I worked in corporate America. I was in the Army, so I saved a lot. I remember I had re-enlisted after my first 6 years of being in the military was up, and I got a $50,000 bonus or sign-on bonus. And I was just like, I don't know if they call them sign-on when you're coming back, but I think it's still used the same. But I would use large lump sums like that to save so that I can invest. Where can people connect with me? So I will be honest, I have not been big on social media or having a digital footprint, but I am, because I get asked so much about what I do, and I get asked to mentor people all the time, and I currently mentor some people at work already and some of my friends. To learn more about me and how I build a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio in less than 2 years, follow me on Instagram at Real Investor Jess. I'm going to drop my YouTube handle below. And if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, drop those in the comments and I'll respond in your DM.